Okay, we are now live. Welcome to the March JavaScript New Zealand committee meeting. Hi, I'm Owen. I'm the chair of JavaScript New Zealand. Anna, do you want to give yourself an introduction?
Well, I'll start. I'm James, and I'm the incoming treasurer.
Hi, I'm another James, and I'm general member.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm general member.
Hello, I'm Stevie, and I'm a general member also.
And I'm Jen, the last of the general members here this evening.
Awesome. It's been quite a while since we've had our last committee meeting, so important that we get space for anybody to bring up any topics that they do want to talk about here. But on the agenda today is essentially two items. So the first one is to get an update of where we're at with JSConf for 2018, whether there are any plans together. So I'll hand it over to Stevie, and if you can let us know where we're at.
Yeah, so we've had a few discussions about this in a channel to talk about the conference. The main blocking thing at the moment is that to run it in Auckland, which is the plan to be able to move it about different cities. We're not going to be able to run it in the format which has been described by the JavaScript New Zealand committee. But as far as I can tell, I am not going to be able to run it like that, which includes two streams, purely because of venues and the ability to actually find a venue which has got a setup which will allow for more than 160 people in two different rooms. The caveat on that is that there are venues available which will allow us to do that, but then we're talking about one room with thousands of people and one room with a couple of hundred, which doesn't seem like the best use of our resources for a conference. So for us to be able to run that in Auckland this year, we're going to have to make a decision whether we want to be able to run it as a single track conference, or if we go, okay, let's run it bi-yearly in Wellington or Christchurch, or once the convention centre in Auckland opens up, that will then actually allow us to do this with their room layouts. So that's sort of the update we were at there.
Can I ask what venues we have looked at and not said?
Yeah, so I've got, let me just open up my emails. So I've been out to Sky City Convention Centre, the ASB Convention Centre, the Auckland Convention Venues and Events, and that's it actually, and aucklandnewzealand.com's event management systems as well. So it's been a canvas of all of the sites which I could A, greater than 400 people, and then B, had multiple rooms. The best option out of those was I believe it's the ASB or the RTS Centre event, which allowed us to have, I think it was 2,200 in one room and then 180 in the other. So that's where the disparity came across, because then it's quite an expensive venue to hire, to then have to limit ourselves to only 300 or 400 people so that we can actually fit them into the event room without limiting ticket sales or limiting streams.
Stevie, did you manage to check whether the University of Auckland or AUT would be suitable venues?
So I emailed both of their events committees. I didn't manage to get, you sent me through a Python conference link. I didn't manage to get a hold of him, but I didn't get any response from AUT, and Auckland said it depends on their schedule, without any commitment to it. So it's not something which is easy for us to then manage and run from our perspective, which makes life quite difficult.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Okay, so we're obviously already in March, which leaves quite a little runway in order to get a conference together this half of the year, especially. Second half of the year might be doable. So my concerns are that cadence is important. So obviously putting a conference on every year is more likely to get people on their budget, on their kind of mind, on they're going to think about it every year. If you do it biannually, then people forget about it pretty regularly, and it's a lot more effort to get people to come along very simply. So I prefer to keep it annually, but I agree that we're probably stuck for this year's conference. We are basically all Wellington based, apart from only a few of us, aren't we? So
yeah, it's just Kevin and I up here.
Yeah, we don't have a huge amount of feet on the ground in Auckland or Christchurch in order to move the venue. Yeah. How does everybody feel about?
Is the 2-track thing a definite? Like, if we want to have an Auckland and we're tossing up, either having keep looking for venues, say with 2 tracks, or if it's easier to just have that single track, are we more likely to go, okay, let's go down that road, or is there the 2-track thing is a definite for us?
Yeah, well, perhaps I can speak to why I made it that format originally, and then if the committee thinks that changing that is a reasonable thing to do, then we should definitely talk about that. But the reason I made it 2 tracks originally is because I wanted technical talks, and I don't think personally you can have a conference that is friendly to both newcomers and very technical people if it's single track, because you are alienating a chunk of your audience if you have a very technical talk in your main track. And that's pretty much the long and the short of why I think it's an important feature.
I have thoughts in favoring the one single track. For example, some people like myself, I find that sitting all day in one track, or even going from track to track and sitting all day at the conference, I rarely do this. And I go to the talks I'm interested in, and then if there's a talk I'm not interested, I just go outside the special area that you can talk to people who are not interested in this talk. That means that you've got something in common. So some talks that you're too difficult to just go to talk to people for whom this talk is also difficult. If you find it's for beginners talk and you want to go to the more technical, during the beginners talk, you just talk to other experts. And that's if there's a problem with venue, it's maybe just not something to stick to too much if it's just not so possible at the moment. So I don't want not to have a conference if we can't have 2 tracks. But another question is, if, for example, decide to hold it so perfect venue for this and decided some kind of track, I think that one of the things for any conference to have at least one keynote and some international speaker. Will we be able to find this person to come and with short notice to come to?
Well, I probably organised the keynotes for the previous conference with about 4 months of notice. So if we were to hold it in October, November, December, probably enough time, but we'd have to get our skates on.
Yeah, I still think sort of 4 to 6 months lead time is reasonable for a conference, and getting the keynote speakers, and especially the keynote speakers, organised within that time. I think your timeframes of 4 months out from that, Jen, still makes sense, which would allow us to run it this year. It really is just a question of how do we want to be able to run it, and if we want to run it in the single track format.
What time of the year was last year's? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Next week.
It was next week. Okay. So JSConf AU, I've just looked up, is in 2 weeks' time. So there isn't going to be a clash there. So that's good. if we do it later on in the year anyway. But there were other things that we kind of looked at doing it later on in the year before, didn't we? And we decided not to. Were there specific reasons why we didn't do that?
Yes. Yeah, no, we had it lined up for the first week of December, and then JSConf AU had the same dates, and that's why we bumped it back.
Okay, so they've obviously changed which part of the year they're going for as well. So, yeah, okay. So what do we want to do? Do we want to vote on? So first of all, we probably need to change the date, obviously, to November or December. Would be my
December
kind of suggestion. Not December.
Yeah, I think it's quite busy just time just to do everything. Maybe just end of October or early November. See, by the way, JSConf AU, that time it was December, so this year it's end of March. So they moved. It was not 1 year. They moved it 4 months past 1 year mark. So that's the same. Why not?
Yeah, the last one was in 20. No, it can't be. It says 2016. That can't be right. But yeah, no, December 2016. They didn't do one in December 2017.
Yeah,
and they're doing it now. So yeah, okay. So we have a choice to make. There's a few things to decide. Like, do we just say there's not going to be one this year, and we're going to go full speed ahead for next year, and try and decide on venue and everything else, but give ourselves a little bit more leeway?
Well, here's a question for Stevie. If we were to go single track, are you confident that of the venues you've talked to, there is one that's good for single track?
Yeah.
Which venue would that?
So that would be the 2250 venue. They've got a single track, which means we don't have to have 2 rooms, and we can have 1 set of breakout rooms, which brings the costs down to within sort of the limit of our cost range. I think that was the Aotea Centre. But sorry, I get confused between it's been a little while, the ASB and the Aotea Centre. One of those two is definitely the one with 2250 room, and then a breakout room, which we can get for us to have sort of the node bots and things like that as ongoings throughout the day, and sort of quiet space for people, which is definitely a doer. And then that allows us then to open up ticketing to a wider range of people as well, which would be good.
So there's one main theatre space, and then there's breakout spaces, did you say?
Yeah, so the way which they, which when I was initially looking at it, we would need, because you need the theatres and then a space for people to be able to just hang out and chill out and have quiet time. To have the 2 theatres would have pushed the cost exorbitantly over, and then didn't really make sense for the amount of people that we could fit into them. But to have the single theatre and then the main concourse or breakout space area allows us to be able to get it underneath the costs which we need to be able to do, and then have that space there. So similar.
Sorry, Karen. Steve.
I was going to say similar to how the one which you ran was.
Yeah, that space outside, or the corridor. I wonder if there's some way we can cleverly use that breakout space, use something that's not main track if we were worried about that content path.
How big is that breakout space?
I have to get the dimensions back of it, but I can re-engage with those vendors.
But I think we just need to decide on principle whether we're happy on 1 track or 2 tracks.
Is the trade-off that is the consideration, do we have 1 track and possibly do it this year, or 2 tracks and have to do it next year? Like, is that kind of what it comes down to?
I think it's 1 track and be able to do it in Auckland.
Yep.
Or 2 tracks and be able to do it in Wellington, or maybe
Okay.
Christchurch if we found somebody to run it in Christchurch, but we don't have anybody. So it will be exact. We can run exactly the same conferences we ran before in Wellington, probably by November. I'd say November. We'd have to have somebody who volunteers to step up to it, but I'd be happy to get involved with that. Or we run 1 track in Auckland and we make it obvious that NZ moves around, or sorry, NZJSCon moves around.
We've got enough people to do a vote, right?
Yeah, we do. So does anybody else have any point? I'm torn. I really don't know. Like, there are pros and cons to everything. Are there ever going to be venues in Auckland where we can do a 2-track conference?
Yeah, like, are we saying that actually this isn't going to work for 2 tracks, therefore we will only have it in Wellington based on venues, unless something comes up at some point? Doesn't Copenhagen have 2 tracks?
No, they're single.
Oh, okay.
The OWASP has 2 tracks, and there are about 800 people with about 400 people per room in some really big lecture theatres at the University of Auckland. But when Stevie says to me, that he struggled to get a hold of them and they were inflexible about their calendar, I totally believe him, because I know for a fact that the OWASP organisers only got that booking sorted by knowing somebody on the inside, and even then it still was a little bit of shenanigans to run it. So yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm trying to think of venues I know, but you end up in like a hotel conference room thing. I presume you spoke to like the Sky City team?
Yeah, so again with that, the hard thing is having a room which is big enough for everybody, and then a room which is small enough for half of that amount, and then not going crazy and ending up with a 3/4 empty venue.
Sure. Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, if we were to scale the conference down, which I really don't want to do, then it becomes easier again, because you can do the conference centres and the race courses and things like that, then have the catering to be able to have a couple of hundred people, but not 400 or 500.
Population size of the community, like, is that an actual thing? Like, more people to come, would it be a bigger conference in Wellington?
I suspect the Auckland conference is going to be bigger than Wellington, like easy.
And to be honest, we were limited by venue size here. We sold out, so yeah, I mean, cards on the table. I'm probably the person in the discussion who's the most anti-single track, right? I'm the most wedded to the 2-track thing. But this is only the second one. We haven't tried single track. In the spirit of experimentation, I guess there's not really anything to stop us from having a go at that, and then assessing afterwards whether we thought it was a benefit to the format or not.
Yeah, I think I'd like the conference to travel just so that we can prove to people that we're not a Wellington-based thing. And that's really important for accessibility more than anything else. Like, getting more people to the conference is more beneficial than anything else. So there are 2 things at play. Like, it's really important that we run one this year. like at some point during this year, so that we actually cement it into people's calendars that there is a there is a JavaScript conference that happens. It's not just a one-off. We didn't just run it one-off. We could possibly push into early next year. I don't think that's a big deal, but certainly it needs to be within the next 12 months, really, realistically.
And just to piggyback on that, I think the important thing is that we at least are talking about it happening soon.
Yes.
It doesn't, as you say, it could bump over to, February, March next year, so that we're keeping that same time slot. Because what does worry me, Stevie, is if you haven't been talking to these venues a little while and we give you the go-ahead and you go back to them and they suddenly say, oh, actually, December's all booked up now, November's all booked up. So, but as Owen says, I don't think that's the end of the world. As long as we set a date and we can start talking about it, that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Can we have just don't have to decide it right now, like the last decision, but for example, say, okay, let's try Auckland, October, November. And Stevie just investigates what's available, and we see at the exact venues the prices and the size for the October, November. And if there's nothing, and very close, like next 2 or 3 weeks, just very, very close time frame. And then we just look at them, and there is just, if it doesn't work, we'll just rethink it, and if it works, we just do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to vote, but I think, is everybody happy for Stevie to run with Auckland within the next 12-ish months as a single track conference if he needs to? So, all those in favour? Okay, Stevie, you have our blessings to run with a single track conference.
All right.
And just a small note there. Do watch out because KiwiCon is on the 17th and 18th of November, so we need to avoid those dates.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll go back out to all of the people who have given me such nice quotes, and I've ignored them for 4 months, and ask them again to come back to me for, I don't know, what was that? The 17th and 18th of November sounds.
So don't do it then. If you get some sense of availability for late October, early November, like maybe that first week in November, and if they can't do those two, then probably January or February is the better idea. And I'd probably say February just so that the kids are back at school. And
yes, it's February because when kids are not at school, it's just...
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so if you can find some kind of dates that you've got a venue in mind, you kind of know when they're available, and then we can work out if other things clash. I think that's the next go forward, is find out when that venue is available, how much it's going to be, whether it's still in budget, etc. Does that sound good?
Sounds amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stevie. Thank you for persisting on this journey with us as we find out where on earth this conference is going to go. Okay, James, do you maybe want to give us an update of where we are in terms of handover of treasury role from Alex? How much you've got access to, how much you don't, everything else?
At the moment, that's been a exercise in frustration with Alex and me finding difficulty getting schedules to mesh. As I understand it, this week he's frantic with wedding at the end of the week, and I don't know when he'll be due back. I'm going to try and get hold of him tomorrow and see if we can pin down some dates so that he can do the handover, and hopefully around the end of the month when bills come out, so that I can see what the processes are for handling any invoices and things like that. Both of us are still really keen to do the handover as quickly as possible. It's just been, schedules have been crazy with me changing jobs and with him working on the wedding and all that sort of thing.
Sure, that's understandable. I'm just aware that we need to make sure this is sorted in March. There's going to be a risk if we go into April and the tax returns and everything else without, because I don't have access to the bank accounts. I don't know if you do yet.
No, I don't yet. So I'll raise the priority and see if I can get hold of Alex, so that we can sit down and do the accounts together sometime really soon.
I mean, even if you can
forgot about it was tax time.
Yeah, even if you can fill out the form and go into an ASB, they should be able to start that process for you. You probably don't need Alex present. I did that, but they haven't yet actually followed up with Alex, so it's with ASB. I don't know where it's sitting with them, but I need to chase them up to find out.
Okay, well, I'll take a note to follow that up with Alex, and hopefully I can get in touch with them tomorrow morning.
Okay, cool. Yeah, do you have access to the Xero account?
I believe so. I think I've logged into it already with my current Xero login.
Okay.
I'll double check that, and hopefully if there's any problems with that, I'll get that authorized when I talk to Alex tomorrow.
Yeah, you can ping me if you need access to Xero. I can add people to that, so that's not a big deal.
Okay, cool.
But do let me know. Yeah, so just if we can make sure that's sorted this month, and if it's not going to get sorted, then just raise the flag, because there's a big risk there in that nobody has access to the bank account, and we need to do the tax return or payment or whatever else is involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll chase that up with Alex, and I'll let the committee know in the channel what the plans are from there.
Cool. The other thing I need to do is redirect the treasurer email address to you.
I think I might have done that already.
So
I have been getting some emails from various things. I've been getting copies of invoices. I believe Alex has been getting them as well, but I've been getting copies of invoices from Heroku and places like that.
Great. And that's probably all set up then. Thank you very much, Jen.
Yay, Jen.
Okay. So there's no concrete there, but at least we know what the plan of attack is, and we know when it's going to be done by, so that's good. I guess any other business, seeing it's been quite a while since we've had a committee meeting, are there any other things that we want to bring up at this level?
I was just going to say, I actually work with Alex, and he is very busy. He finished up his contract with us in a couple of weeks, and then he's getting married the week after. But if you chase him up and you're not getting anything, whenever he and Alex or I are both in Wellington, he sits beside me, so I can just reach over and get him to do shit.
Thanks, dude. That's awesome.
So any more? Anything else to discuss? Okay, thanks everybody for your time today. Thank you, Stevie, for taking on the Auckland conference. Thank you, James, for taking on the treasury role. Thank you, everybody, for showing up for the first time in a while. Hopefully we can get Cadence going again, and we'll get back onto it. Yeah, so that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody. And
thanks a lot.
See you all soon.